In this video, we are going to present the new design of a rigid floor for an inflatable boat. Rigid floors are needed to make it possible to stand in the boat and move in a comfortable way, without any fear to fall overboard. In addition to that, rigid floors guarantee the strength of the bottom fabric, which allows good speed and stability of movement on the water. Traditionally, a boat floor is rectangular in shape. It is either a floor of the most basic design, consisting of one or several rectangular parts, which are placed separately or connected to each other, or a combination of a floor, aluminum connecting profiles, and stringers. For years, the method of installing the floors into the boat remained the same. It was either the floor material which changed, the most used material is plywood or aluminum, or some additional elements that were added, such as aluminum profiles or stringers. However, this year a new type of floor, the polar bird floor, has been introduced. This new floor differs from standard floor ceilings or the floorboards in its shape and its installation method, which has become safer and more comfortable. Rigid floor assembly for a standard design board and a polar bird board. Installation of standard rectangular-shaped floorboards in combination with stringers. Stringers stand for specially designed aluminum profiles, which are placed under the board tubes to provide the connection strength for the joint floorboards and exclude any movement of them. For this reason, stringers are always used in large keel boats. Firstly, in order to install standard floorboards into the board has to be deflated. It is impossible to install the floorboards into the board when inflated. Secondly, the bow and the stern sections are placed first, followed by the central sections, and finally the stringers. At the same time, in order to fit the stringer into the floorboard, the floorboards have to be lifted off the floor. It can be done in the way shown on the video. Alternatively, the keelson can be inflated or an oar can be placed underneath the board. While fitting the stringers into the floorboards and fitting the central sections together, hands and fingers are exposed to the risk of being pinched by the floorboards. Only after the installation of the floor has been completed, the board can be inflated and go on the water. This method of floor installation is only possible on a relatively solid and even surface. The new design of the floor is not based on a rectangle, but on a rectangular trapezoid. The floorboards of such a shape provide a number of advantages over the rectangular floorboards. To begin with, the floor installation method changes. The floor is being installed into an inflated board, which is provided by the trapezoidal shape of the floorboards. This significantly simplifies the whole installation process. Secondly, the floorboards are placed in a sequential order, starting from the bow and finishing with the stern section. Moreover, the stringers start to be placed right after installing the bow section and are fitted directly into the floorboards, step by step. Thus, the problem of pinching the fingers due to fitting the stringers into the floorboards in the lifted position is being automatically solved. The whole process takes only about a couple of minutes. Thirdly, thanks to the trapezoidal shape of the floorboards, an already inflated board can be transported directly to the water prior to floor installation, which is not the case with a standard floorboard. It should be noted that usually a board is assembled next to the car, which is parked relatively far from the water, mostly due to administrative requirements. This being said, the total weight of a board varies from 40 to 70 kilograms or even more, whereas the floor weight may amount up to 30 or 40% of the total board weight, which makes it very difficult to move an already assembled board together with an installed floor from the place where it has been assembled to the shore, in particular for a single person. The standard design of the floorboards requires a relatively long sequence of steps. An already inflated and assembled board either has to be carried with the floorboards installed, which requires a special transport due to the weight, or the following sequence applies. The board has to be inflated next to the car by means of an electrical air compressor, then carried ashore. Then the floorboards have to be carried separately. Afterwards, the board has to be deflated on the shore for the floor installation, and finally inflated again to be used, this time by means of a foot pump. However, in this case, it's almost impossible to reach proper air pressure in the board tubes. The new floor design solves this problem. The board is firstly inflated by means of an electrical air compressor, then carried over to the shore, and the floorboards are carried separately. Finally, the floor is installed into the board on the shore. It doesn't matter whether the surface is solid and even, and this can be even done on the water. The installation of the rigid floor of standard design versus polar bird design. The installation method of the standard floor also significantly differs from the polar bird one. Let's have a look at the de-installation of a standard floor. The board has to be deflated, and only then the floorboards and the stringers have to be removed. However, the process is quite complicated, even if the board is deflated. The floorboards have to be lifted again and taken out of the stringers, and very often fingers are pinched, skin is grazed, or nails are broken in the process. Last but not the least, after one has successfully separated the floorboards from the stringers and removed the floorboards out of the board still has to be washed afterwards. For this, it has to be inflated once again, which implies additional time consumption. The newly designed floorboards are easily removed from the board even when the board is on the water. There is no risk of hand injuries. The board can be instantly washed, and floor demounting takes only 1-2 minutes, regardless of the weather conditions and the amount of dirt in the board. Usually, the convenience of the installation is much more important to the users than the installation, especially to fishermen and hunters. There are 2 reasons behind that. First of all, fishing and hunting are active leisure time activities requiring a lot of power and energy. That is why the floor de-installation and the whole board disassembly procedure has to be as easy and convenient as possible. Additionally, the board has to be washed after use. This is done on the water. But before this, the floor has to be de-installed, since sand, dirt, mud, and other rubbish is stuck in or under the floor. However, it should be noted that the board has to be washed when inflated. Thus, when a board has got a standard floor, the whole process becomes relatively long and implies a considerable amount of steps to be taken. Firstly, the board has to be taken ashore, then deflated. Then the floorboards have to be de-installed. Afterwards, the board has to be inflated again, and only then the washing process can start. The new polar bird floor makes the whole process easier, faster, and more convenient, since it implies less steps to be taken. The newly designed floorboards guarantee the same level of strength and rigidity as the standard ones, and even outperform the latter. Standard floorboards are etched with aluminum profiles only on 2 sides, whereas the trapezoidal floorboards of the new design are etched with aluminum all round, along the perimeter, which provides for more strength than the plywood alone, both vertical and horizontal. The required strength of the bottom fabric is provided by installing the floorboards, which pull up the fabric. As mentioned previously, in case of a standard floor, the central sections have to be lifted off the bottom and only then placed, which implies high risk of pinching the fingers, whereas in case of the newly designed floorboards, the strength of the bottom fabric is provided by installing the stern section without any risk of pinching the fingers. As it can be seen on the video, the new trapezoidal design of the rigid floor is much more convenient and safe to use thanks to its strength, ease of use and functionality. This floor design is one and only model in the world and knows no comparable counterparts. Thank you for your attention.